Hey friends, I'm back today with Erica Moore. Erica is a member of Office Evolution and also an agent with Five Rings Financial. She's someone I've known for several years now, and I particularly got to know her as really a passionate advocate for furthering financial awareness and education. She's doing it particularly through her Wine, Women, and Wealth networking events that she hosts. She used to host them at Office Evolution. Now she's doing them virtually, obviously. We had a great time talking about why a networking event that is dedicated to women and women focused, why it's so important to create such a space, particularly when discussing finances. That conversation starts around minute 25. And I'm just highlighting that because I don't want you to miss the points she makes. And she just really highlights why that is so important. So it's a great conversation. There's another educational event that she runs, she also runs called Money 101. I attended that event, and I got to tell you guys, I was blown away by her professionalism, the way she carries herself, and her ability to convey really great and important financial information and education. Um, I, as probably many of you, have been reevaluating my own finances and my own ability to weather what is basically a shitstorm that is this COVID 19 pandemic. Um, in our conversation in this video, we talk about things like insurance, investing, estate management. It's important for anyone to really reevaluate where they are and their own ability to weather this storm, particularly for women, um, for whom Erica provides a space where that can be done in a safe way. So I highly recommend her, my friend Erica Moore. Here we go. Erica, it's so good to see you.
Yeah, you too, Martin.
What's
I
going
tell you,
on?
um, this chair, that's what's going on. Lots of Zoom meetings. That's what's happening.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm thankful though that I've been able to, adjust to being able to do just about everything virtually.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean it's been a process, but mostly, yeah, it's going pretty well. How
How
about
so tell me more about this. So how what does that mean? I guess it's easy to find and maintain relationships and stuff like that, but as far as finding new clients, how does that work for you?
well, for me, finding new clients has always worked through hosting educational events. And so that's always been my process. But up until, I guess, a month ago, they were
Yeah.
face to face and,
Yeah.
in person events. And, my focus with the educational events that I do is to make them interesting, to make them fun, and make them so that when people come to the event, they learn something and they feel like their time was well spent. And what naturally happens is that if people enjoyed the event, they'll tell other people. And when we host the event again, they'll bring other people back. So that's always been the process. And now we're just duplicating that process virtually. And so far, so good.
Yeah. How's so we're talking about wine, women, and wealth, or are you doing something else?
I also host an event. So, in addition to Wine, Women, and Wealth, yes. And that one was a little challenging because that event is generally interactive. And so, trying to create ways to make it still interactive with 50 women online
Yeah.
has been fun and challenging, but we're getting it done. But I also host an event that's co ed called Money 101. And at that event, it's more of a workshop, more of a lecture. And at that one, I teach fundamentals and principles about money and how money works. And so, because it's more of a lecture and it already had a PowerPoint presentation, that one was a little bit easier to transition to a virtual format, share screen, show the PowerPoint, and still give the workshop. So the only difference is we normally do that over lunch or dinner. So they have to get their own lunch or their own dinner. I can't
Yeah.
do that virtually, but otherwise the information gets out and people seem to have responded really well. So yeah,
That's fantastic.
it's been
Well,
different.
I actually wanted to catch up with you and maybe talk a little bit about this because I know you're doing. I mean, I know you from BNI, and I know you from the perspective of life insurance, and we'll talk about that. But you also do quite a bit with financial management, right? Or with finance. Tell me more about that because I don't know anything about that aspect of your.
Yeah. And that's because I don't really talk about it in BNI.
Well, you can't.
So, yeah, right.
Oh, you couldn't.
Exactly. So really what I focus on, Martin, is ways for people to save and invest money for their long-term needs, whether it's their own retirement or children's education, things like that. But I use vehicles that are safe and guaranteed. So my phone was not ringing off the hook a couple weeks ago as over the last few weeks as the stock market has been having its dips.
Yeah.
My clients, the money that they have placed with me is safe and guaranteed. And I think one of the challenges is that, and this is one of the things I talk about in that Money 101 workshop, is that most people believe there are basically two places to put their money. There's safe places like money market accounts or CDs at a bank, very safe and secure. But in this low interest rate environment that we've been in for quite some time, they're not making very much on those. And so people are not happy about that. Right after 2008, they were more concerned about the return of their money than the return on it because they'd lost so much. And so people were pretty happy in 2008 and 2009 just to know that their money was safe and secure. But we're well beyond that. And a lot of people have left their money in those low interest rate environments because they believe that those are the only two choices. So a lot of what I do is in indexed accounts. And basically, in those accounts, your returns are based on the performance of a stock index. So like the S&P 500. And so the S&P 500 just is the measuring stick that determines how much interest is credited in your account. And so the way it works in an indexed account is, let's say a year like, let's say at the end of this year, we end up with a negative 10%, okay, overall in the S&P. So my clients will get a zero. Now that's not very exciting, right? To get credited no interest in their account, but it's a heck of a lot more exciting than negative 10, right?
Mhm.
And so let's say in 2021, the market rebounds and there's a positive return. Let's say it's positive 8%. So from a point here, my clients are going to get that 8%, right? And let's say the following year, it's another negative. It's a negative 8%. If you actually were invested in the market, you're going to lose 8%. My clients just get to stay right here, right? So it goes across a zero again. Again, not real exciting, but better than negative 8. So let's say the following year, we get a nice rebound and it goes up 15%. Well, in indexed accounts, there's a cap. And so right now, the caps are around 9-10%. So let's say it's 10%. My clients are going to get a 10% return that year. So in many cases, they're willing to give up a little bit of the upside in order to never, ever have a 2008 again. Okay. So the floor of zero, what makes it not too good to be true is there's also a ceiling. And so the index accounts are going to bounce between that floor and that ceiling, but not ever below zero and not ever above the cap. So it's a kind of a nice in-between spot that guarantees you don't ever lose money, but you're able to realize returns that are generally better than what you're going to get in a fixed account. So it's
I
like
never
kind of
heard
a
of this
sweet
before.
spot in
So
the middle.
I got you. So this isn't like, I mean, I always thought of index funds like Vanguard, S&P 500 stuff. This isn't that because
It's
that just
not.
follows the stock market. This is some
Yeah, it's different. So
is
in those accounts, those are funds, right? They're
right.
index funds. And so they do follow an index, but they follow it up and down, up and down. So in a year where the index returns a negative, you're going to get that negative in an indexed fund. Where they benefit is that in a regular mutual fund, you're actually paying some management fees in there for someone to actually manage that fund, 1 to 2% generally. So where an indexed fund really saves you is that you're not going to pay management fees. So the fees are generally a lot lower in a fund because nobody has to make those decisions. The interest is credited based on the performance of the index, and nobody's making decisions as to where the money goes, if that makes sense.
So how are you guys capping this? I mean, I know the cap on the downside is zero. The cap on the upside, does it vary
It
based on
does
the
vary. It does vary year to year. So I've seen it as high as 14%, and
Wow.
I've seen it as low as 8%. So it's going to go in between. And with a cap of 11, a floor of 0, those accounts have averaged 6 to 7% over the last 30 years.
Okay. And I imagine a lot of retirees or people approaching retirement age are using that kind of a fund vehicle just because is the
Yeah,
risk
they're
aversion is so much greater.
absolutely, or for that money that you absolutely can't afford to lose. And I would put it like this: imagine you're going to Vegas. You got, two pockets in your pants. The first pocket is your gambling money, and the other pocket is your money to get your car out of long-term parking. This is that long-term parking money. Okay, so that's the way I like to look at it. For the money that you can afford to take some risks with, great. But for most, and my clients for the most part are middle income Americans, right? And so there's a large chunk of their retirement dollars that they really can't afford to lose, right?
Hmm.
And so that's the money that I would recommend that you put in a safe vehicle. But you can't afford to let your money grow at 1% or a quarter percent. One of the other things we teach is this rule of 72, which teaches you how to calculate how many years that your deposit will take to double if you leave it on its own at a particular interest rate. And so the way it works is you take the interest rate and you divide it into the number 72. And that tells you how many years your deposit will take to double at that rate of interest. So if you take 1%,
Hmm.
and you put that into 72, your $1,000 deposit is going to be 2,000 in 72 years. You can't let your money grow that slowly. And we've had, over the last few years, we've had situations where in a CD, people were getting a quarter percent. If you put a quarter percent in the rule of 72, your money doubles every 288 years. You can't let your money grow that slowly. And so when people think that the only places are safety or total risk, those are the choices they're faced with. Do I risk losing, 50%? Or do I put it in a place where at least I'm going to get back what I put in? But there's that spot in between for some of your money where you still have the opportunity to gain reasonable interest rates without the risk.
So how's it going right now with this product?
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. And the challenge, Martin, really is that, like you just said, I've never heard of that. Most people
Yeah.
have never heard of it. And so, that's one of the reasons why we do those educational events, is to really open people's eyes about other possibilities, and other things that they could consider.
So you're hosting these educational events on I take it on via Zoom or
In
something
fact,
like
I
that.
have one coming up this Saturday. So, yeah, we're doing
Okay.
one at 3 p.m. on Saturday, what is that, the 25th? Yeah.
Well, definitely send me a link. I'll post it out there.
Awesome. I will. I will.
We should be
And it's an
promoting it
hour
here.
long, so it's not, going to take your entire day.
Yeah, I how does a person like me get their house in order these days? I mean, and you know my situation. I mean, I made a transition out of the corporate world into business world by disrupting my finances quite a bit. Obviously, I had to make an investment, um, and my financial situation is completely different. It's working, but it's different. But
Mhm.
it seems like none of those pieces are put back together. And if there's one thing that I've done during this, just as this pandemic occurred, was panic went on legal Zoom and I created a living trust. I'm sorry, no, not a living trust,
Living will.
a living will and a power of attorney. And that tells you how irresponsible. I mean, I feel irresponsible just for not having all of these all of these things, and like not having my house in order as far as all of these financial and legal documents and vehicles. How does a person like that, like me, right now, clean up their house? Is it even possible, or am I screwed?
No, it's definitely possible. The first thing is you can't change anything that you did or didn't do in the past. So you might as well just dismiss that, because people beat themselves up about what they could have, should have, whatever. you didn't, and here we are. So all you can do is the best you can do going forward. So you took a step, right? You put something in place, which is better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
I would just highly recommend, because, Martin, you're a business owner, you're a family man, you have a wife, you have a child, all of those things are super important. I would highly recommend that you see an estate attorney and really have someone who does this day in and day out. And if you need a recommendation, I can help you with that, because my clients ask about those things. And I actually ask those questions. Do you have a will? How are you set with those things? Because that really is a part of your overall financial picture.
All right. So I take care of this stuff through an estate attorney. What's next?
Yeah, well, as far as ensuring that, your assets pass and all that kind of stuff properly, and with as little taxes, that's the biggest thing. I don't care whether you're talking to me about money and finance, or you're talking about your estate upon your death. One of the biggest things you want to protect your money from is taxes. And that's, a big part of what they're looking at. Obviously, you have a child and you want to make sure that she's going to be cared for and all of that. And that's part of your estate plan. And it has to live and breathe too, because your situation changes over time. At some point she won't be a minor anymore, and things have to change. So, and you change with it. The other thing is, I know for us, like, I have, my oldest is 21 now. If I passed away, do I really want $2 million to pass to a 21-year-old? Absolutely not. Because if all I had was, say, my life insurance, right, and he was made the beneficiary, the contingent beneficiary, if my husband and I both passed away. Oh, can you imagine the average 21-year-old that
Hmm?
just got handed
Two million
$2 million?
dollars.
That's just, it would be insane. But inside of our trust document, we can stipulate the criteria by which that money is dispersed, right? You can't do that outside of a trust, to my knowledge. Now, I am not an attorney, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
my
Yeah. Yeah. The
disclaimer.
disclaimer. Yeah.
But
We're just talking. I mean, I really am trying to just, to figure out what's even possible at this point.
yeah, but I would sooner rather than later have a conversation and just understand what the document you have is doing for you and what it is not. And that is an important piece.
Yeah. Okay. Just basically showing the
Yeah,
Zoom PDF or not even.
yeah, show them what you've done, and just, do that initial consultation at the very least. And I think it'll be eye-opening for you as to the difference between what they might put together for you and what the documents that you have put together for yourself are doing or not doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, better than not having, really. So feel good about having taken that step.
Yeah, it's going to be a while until I feel good about. I mean, you're right. This whole situation, if anything, it just highlights how you just go through life and don't think about mortality, and just kind of just go through things. In the meantime, you get a little bit older. You know, you get on a plane, you get in a car. I mean, you just never know. And I, you
We
know, I don't know if that's kind of an emergent thing where you just become aware of your mortality, or if this pandemic just added on to it. But I feel extremely sort of loosey goosey when it comes to uh, what could even happen if Ira and I got sick, and what would happen next. It's like, wow, you know.
we increased our coverages. I mean, I'm one of those people that, as we were going through this, it was a big reminder of our mortality, and we evaluated, what we have and what our children would need, and all of that. And we did go and increase our coverages just because we, like you said, we were made really, really aware of our mortality. And and for me also the living benefits, because when you think about it honestly, Martin, your age and even at my age, the likelihood that we die early, it's not that great, right? And that's why, life insurance, term life insurance in particular, is relatively inexpensive. right?
Yeah.
Because most of us do not die early. But what does happen with most of us is that we do get sick, right? We have a heart attack or stroke or cancer or something, right? That doesn't take us out, but it makes us sick enough that we're not able to work for some significant period of time, which is why, in my opinion, the living benefits are just as important as the death benefit, is the ability to tap into that face amount so that if you get ill and you're not able to work for a significant period of time, that you have a place to grab a chunk of cash to fund your life that doesn't affect your long-term savings and investments. Because for most middle Americans, what happens if they get sick, seriously ill, is they blow through their emergency fund. And when that's gone, the next place that most of us have a chunk of cash is going to be in our retirement accounts, right?
Yeah.
And so let's say you're 55 when this happened and you were right on track for your financial plan. You're going to retire at 65, but you get sick at 55 and you're not able to work for a year or maybe 2 years. So you blow through the emergency fund and you start tapping into your long-term savings. And then at 57, you're back to work and you're starting over with your savings for your retirement. That's not a good place to be. But I see that kind of thing happen to more people. I mean, come on, we see GoFundMe's every single day for someone who got cancer or someone who had a heart attack or someone who was in an accident, those sorts of things. And then certainly for people who pass away unexpectedly. Life insurance with living benefits would have taken care of those things.
Why isn't why aren't we hearing more about this stuff? Is it just my own personal ignorance, or is there something about life insurance and that just
Well, I remember back in like when my grandparents were living, people used to knock on the door.
right?
Life insurance salespeople used to knock on the door and they would sell life insurance that way. We don't really do it that way anymore.
Well, that's the thing, right? And I guess up until the time when I met you, which has been a few years now, my idea of life insurance agent was um, I'm going to try to be sensitive about it.
It's
Very,
okay. Say what you're thinking. I've heard it all, I'm
very.
sure.
It was influenced by Groundhog Day. You know the scene,
Yes.
Ned.
Yes. Yes, I
That's
do.
all I. That's what I. That's kind of you know. Um, but we've had several of these conversations, and it's never been like that before. Where did this come from? Was it just the door to door salesmanship?
I think
Just kind of
so.
screwed it up for you
I, I,
guys,
I
or
think so. And I think people don't really understand the value of actually having an agent. I'll give you an example. I was working with a client, this was probably last year, and she's a business owner and she was getting, I don't know, a 1.5 or $2 million policy, and it was primarily because she is key, in this business, and it was primarily for continuity of her business if something were to happen to her. And in the case of what she ended up getting, it was living and death benefits. So if she had gotten sick, there would be a chunk of cash to hire somebody to perform the functions that she performs in the business. So anyway, um, in most life insurance, the pricing is based on your gender, your age, and your health. Okay. Now she was, and it's the nearest age. So she had just crossed over a year older, and she's in her 60s. So life insurance, of course, becomes more expensive as you get older, and so the difference between whatever her age was, let's call it, 64 and 65, was pretty significant. It was probably, I don't know, $700-800 difference in the price. And what we were able to do was backdate the policy to save her age. We only had to backdate it like a month. But if she had gone online to purchase this coverage and not worked with an agent, she would be paying $600 or $700 a year more every single year as long as she had that policy. Where she could pay one extra month and date the policy as of the month before so that she's a year younger as far as the policy is concerned and save that amount of money every single year for the entire length of the policy. So those are the kinds of things that you're able to do and know about and take advantage of when you work with an agent. I mean, yeah, she could have gone, online and bought a policy, but she'd have probably paid $600 or $700 a year more every year for it. So that's just one example of where having an agent really is going to work to your advantage. And because I'm independent, I work with a lot of different insurance companies. And so people don't really understand the difference between a captive agent that works for one company. They're going to be able to offer you the products that are sold by that company only. I have no incentive other than what's in my client's best interest to sell a policy with company X versus company Y. Either one of them will pay me a commission. So I'm looking at what's going to be best for the client. And different companies, have different bells and whistles, and it depends on the needs.
How did you get into this line of work? You used to do IT, right? You were just like me,
I
a
did.
techie person. How did you get into life
Well,
insurance?
interestingly, I've always had an interest in money and finance, and I actually took my first license in this industry more than 20 years ago.
Wow.
And I started working in the industry, and my degree is in computer science, and I worked in that field for a long time. But I wanted to try something different, and I always had an interest. So I went and got all licensed up, and I went to work for a company. And what I found, Martin, was all they were interested in was how much I could sell. It was really a sales organization, and it was really about the sale. And my focus, I really want to help people with what I have learned over the years. And so I went to work for a second company, and I found exactly the same thing. Company three, same thing. I quit. I allowed all the licenses to lapse and I went back to my IT career. And then fast forward, I guess it's been about 9 years ago, a friend of mine who has always been in this industry went to work for Five Rings Financial. And she was telling me about it. And I was like, wow, that really sounds like what I was looking for 20 years, I guess it was 12 years ago at that point. And so I went to a Money 101 workshop that was actually being taught by the CEO. He had traveled here from Denver, and he was teaching this in Reston. And so I got a chance to meet him and hear from him the vision for the company and really what this company was about. And, core values of purpose, character, courage, energy, and love. I thought, wow, that's what I was looking for back then. But now I'm back in my IT career. I don't know that I'll do anything with this, but I enjoyed the workshop and I thought everybody needs to hear this. And then I found out about wine, women, and wealth. And I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds fantastic. And the closest one at that time was in Richmond. So I drove down to Richmond and I attended that. And I thought, I don't know if I'll do anything else with this company, but I want to host one of these. So I hosted one in my home. I invited 25 friends, like neighbors, friends, that kind of thing. I invited 25 women and 17 showed up. I was blown away. I've had barbecues where I invited 25 people and I didn't get 17 that showed up. But we had a great time. The conversation was engaging. People were interested. Women were hungry for for the information. And I thought, wow, I'm going to do another one. So I did another one. I couldn't do it at my house because everybody wanted to bring a friend. So we did it at this little community center. One of my guests lived in a great apartment complex. So we did that and 46 women showed up, Martin. I was like, wow. And the interesting thing was, more than half of them were women I had never met before because somebody invited someone who invited someone. And that was really for me when the light bulb went on that there was a need, a real need to share financial information because the traditional industry is male dominated, just like IT. So it was nothing I was, unfamiliar with, but that's what got me hooked, really, was the ability to engage with women on that level and have conversations about money where they're not made to feel stupid, like that's not a dumb question, where we can have conversations. And, you know, we both know that men and women think differently, we make decisions differently, and the traditional financial services industry is really it's men and it's geared toward men.
Hmm.
And not that we exclude men in our company is, we have lots of men in our company, but for the women, that Wine Women and Wealth gives women a safe place to really have conversations about money that they probably wouldn't have if there was even one man in the room.
Wow. Is it, and by the way, I get it. Um, is it the fact that it's women in one place and there isn't a male presence there, or is there something else that you have to deploy to have a conversation with women about finances that is female centric, I guess, if that's a word? But how does that work? Like, tell me more. I'm very curious about it.
Yeah, I think creating a safe space where women know they won't be ostracized. They know that they won't be judged by the mistakes or decisions maybe that they've made in the past, or their lack of knowledge or confusion about different topics, where they can feel comfortable sharing whatever they want to share. Sometimes at Wine Women and Wealth, we're able to celebrate successes, women who've paid off debt or saved the down payment to buy their first home, or funded their kids' college or started it, that kind of thing. Or sometimes, it's a situation where someone's going through something challenging. Maybe it's a job loss and they're not quite sure how they're going to get through that, or a divorce, those sorts of things. And sometimes we're able to console them. It's also networking. And so we're able to connect women with other women who can help solve their problems. I mean, I do certain things and I stay in my lane. And then there are women that come to the event that might be estate attorneys that can help women with those things, or maybe an accountant because, this woman hasn't filed her taxes in 5 years, things like that, that they would be embarrassed to say. And we offer a no judgment zone where they can ask the questions or ask for the help that they might need that they've been struggling with. So things like that come out
And by
in
the way,
those conversations.
I'm I'm asking these questions, but I want you to know I'm not judging or even questioning it. I really believe that we're all tribal. Like we all want to belong to some small family, some small unit of like-mindedness. So I
Hmm.
totally get. How would it be my sort of uh I don't know, built-in sexism, or how would I um negatively influence your gathering? I really want to know. I'm just curious because this to me is, it's
I
the
mean,
first time I've heard.
this is gonna sound silly,
No, no,
but
but give it to me straight. Yeah.
even at our dinner party, women don't eat the same as they do, like if men are there,
Yeah.
versus women,
Yeah.
just women being there.
So it's just the presence, just the
It's just the
presence of a different
presence,
sex.
and it's not that you're doing anything or saying anything that brings in. They're just certain things that women probably wouldn't talk about. Like they might not share details about the negative impact of their divorce on their finances if you were there. Um, and it's not like we certainly are not doing man bashing. That's what my husband thinks we do at One Women and Well. It's like, no, I promise you, we're not talking about you.
That's right.
Um, we're talking about things that matter. Like I remember sharing at Wine Women and Wealth that early on in our marriage, we sat down with a financial advisor, and I wasn't in that line of work at all at the time. I've always been the one that managed the money, always. And so this guy comes in, we're sitting at my kitchen table, and he's directing the entire conversation to my husband. And despite the fact that my husband told him no less than 5 times that you need to ask her, you need to be talking to her, I'm just the smiler nodder, right?
Yeah.
And he kept directing his attention to my husband. And finally, just as I was about to get up and leave, because I was like, this isn't going anywhere as far as I'm concerned. I was about to get up and leave. My husband stood up and said, "Well, I think we've heard enough." I was like, "Thank you," because I was done with this. But
Well,
that's the way that in many cases women have been treated by the traditional financial services industry, as if, and this is women, these are women who are professional, women who are wage earners, women who are contributing to the, to the household, all that kind of stuff. in many circumstances, we're treated as though we don't exist, and as though our interests are 100% the same, and they generally are not. We place importance on different things financially. In general, of course, I'm speaking in generalities. And so we get to talk about those things. Women make decisions a little bit more slowly. I generally will meet with a woman 3 or 4 times before they make a decision about what they want to do. Traditional financial services, after you've met with somebody twice, if they haven't made a decision as far as they're concerned, you're stringing me along,
They
and
have
they're
to
on to the
no
next
time for
person.
you. They move on. Yeah.
They move on. Where if a woman says, I want to think about it, that's really what they mean. They're not blowing you off. And so this is different. And we're not accustomed to being treated with that kind of patience traditionally.
Hmm.
So
So, so you're running Wine, Women, and Wealth chapters. Is that how are you
I guess you
organizing
could
this?
call it that. Wine, Women, and Wealth was the brainchild of one of my colleagues many years before I joined the company. But she lived in Denver, where our home office is, and she and her husband moved out to California, and she didn't have any girlfriends. And so she was in wine country, and she decided to invite some ladies to join her at a winery. And they were just having conversations about money. And that's where Wine, Women, and Wealth actually came from. But fast forward today, there are gatherings like the ones that I host happening all over the country, run by female members of of Five Rings Financial.
So, so is it structured? Is it unstructured? How do you run these meetings?
Yeah,
Or
there
am
is a
am I
structure.
not supposed to know?
No, it's not a
I'm just
secret
kidding.
society or anything like that. It's just the conversations remain private. But um, in general, we come in and we have maybe 15 minutes of open networking. Now, every host does things slightly differently, but in general, there's some open networking. There is a presentation. We generally have some wine and some food, so we'll try a few different wines. It's more of a wine tasting, and some bites to eat, and then the women that are there have an opportunity to stand up and introduce themselves. And some are business owners, some are not, and so they get to
Mhm.
introduce themselves. And usually the conversation is interactive, so we'll have a subject, whatever that is, and then we have conversations about that. So whoever is presenting that night will lead that conversation. And sometimes we'll break off in small groups and have conversations there. Sometimes we go to work on things. So it really varies. Like in January, we usually do something around goal setting and things like that, or how to achieve your goals. So it varies. It's not always just about money. Sometimes it's about your mindset, because
Mm.
that's a key part to um, creating good habits around money and sustaining them.
Did you combine these meetings together now that because you've had them in multiple locations, right?
Yeah, we've combined them.
We and so it's all combined right now, just one Zoom meeting.
Yeah, we've combined them. So, in fact, we were meeting, obviously, at Office Evolution
Yeah.
on the third Friday. And Fridays have been great meeting times for people. Now, when we do them in restaurants, Fridays generally are not great times because restaurants are very, very busy. And Wine, Women, and Wealth works better if we're able to be in a private room. And so it's tough to do that in a restaurant on a Friday night. But being at Office Evolution on Friday was fantastic. It's
Yeah.
such a great space. And it's
Quiet. Everybody's out for the week,
quiet.
right?
Yes.
That makes
And
sense. I get it.
yeah, it was just a wonderful place to meet. But when we looked at all the different nights that we were meeting, Friday night has was the best, and so we've kept the night that we were meeting at Office Evolution as our regular monthly during this COVID period. So
And it's still working for you.
it is
Right.
working beautifully. We just
That's awesome.
unfortunately can't be at Office Evolution right now because we're gathering way more than 10.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I miss everyone. I miss seeing you out there as well, Erica.
Oh my
So
gosh, we do too. I do too.
it's it'll be fine. I think I'm starting to I'm starting to come to this realization that everybody's talking about the fact that well I can't wait for this to be over, and it's just like what if it wasn't? What if this is what this is? And it's going to be like that for the next 12 months. And we're just
Yeah.
going to have to figure out how to work with it. Clearly, nobody's going to be sitting at home all the time for the next 12 months. But, we will be socially distancing a lot more, and we will be hiding behind plexiglass and face masks. And we'll have to get used to the fact that, we just have to be inventive in how business gets done, because you know what I mean? Like, there's no return to normal. Normal's gone.
No, you're right. I thought about it the other day. I had to go out foraging for food. So I went to the store and I had a baseball cap on.
Yeah.
I had my glasses and I had a mask on. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, if I had done this 2 months ago, I probably would have been arrested walking into a store
Right.
like that. Oh, and gloves too.
Yeah.
Like, it's a totally different world where it's acceptable for me to walk into a store with only my eyes being visible behind glasses. Like that would have been completely unacceptable 2 months ago.
I've heard anecdotes, though. I've heard anecdotes of people getting hustled in 7-Elevens, especially. That's not a good place to walk into with a face mask on.
No, a big old face mask.
Yeah.
I mean, really, when I looked in the mirror, like I said, I had a baseball cap on, and I mean, I wear glasses, so I had those on, and then I had a mask going like
Yeah.
this, and I had those rubber gloves on. I thought, this does not look good.
Yeah.
But it's the new, it's going to be the new normal. I think it'll be interesting to see as we're seeing, Georgia is starting to open businesses
Yeah.
and things like that. I'll be interested to see if people actually flock to these businesses that are open. I think it's going to be a very slow
No.
progression of people,
Yeah.
going from this to now I'm going to sit in a crowd of, I don't think so.
No. I mean, I'm asking myself constantly, do I see myself going out to say, it seems like a distant future, but it's not. 4th of July celebration. Heck no. Hell no, I'm not going to be going out to see fireworks in a group of people. I just
Mm-mm,
don't see it,
I don't either.
Now, smaller get-togethers at some point, depending on obviously the state restrictions being listed. I'd like to see my grandma. I mean, my grandma. I'd like to see my mom, my daughter's grandma, and kind of maybe have like a safe family get together. At some point, we're just going to have to do that. And the thing is, we all live within 3 miles of one another. But
Same here.
large group gatherings or restaurants, forget about it. And you know, yeah, it's just going to be gradual. It's going to be gradual with lots and lots of protection and face masks, and people will get sick and they'll get sick again. Depending on how this goes, because until we are all somehow vaccinated or
Right.
develop some sort of a group, what's it called, a herd, what is it, herd something,
The
immunity.
immunity
Yeah.
or some sort of a treatment
Or
that's actually
treatment.
working
Right.
so that people aren't dying at this rate.
The,
you know if they had
yeah.
a treatment that people could rely on, then that would, I think, do a lot to
To where it just
increase
becomes
people's comfort level
that's right, it becomes a nasty cold that I treat, right,
and get
and
over.
get over it and move on.
Right.
But until that happens, there's just going to be no confidence.
But
um,
even schools, I mean, I was hearing them talking about, the opening of schools and the idea that we could have another resurgence in the fall, right at the same time schools are opening. And I've got one in college and one going to high school. And so I'm thinking that's scary for us. I have my sister-in-law that lives with us and she's 87. And we can't take chances with that. You know, I would like to believe that the four of us would probably be okay. My husband, myself, we're both pretty healthy. My kids are both healthy. If one of us got it, I like to believe we would probably get it and get over it. But she wouldn't, you
no,
know?
I haven't made a decision yet about school for my kid. I think that I never thought of myself as a
Me
homeschooler,
either, but I'm thinking about it.
but I'm thinking about it. Yeah, and the more I see the content that Loudoun County Public Schools put out there, which it's supposed to be a great school system. I am surprised at how little there is. And I don't know if it's just their preparedness, because I'm sure clearly they're not prepared to do
Right.
distance learning. But I've gone out on other homeschool platforms to take a look at what kind of content there is for first grader, and I think that they are years ahead.
They
I'm
are.
not
I
trying
think you're right.
to criticize the schools here, but I'm just surprised how little there is, and how I it seems like I could definitely, at least maybe for now in the grade school, keep my kid at home and provide her with the same level of education, if not more. Because
Probably more.
you know what the difference is. I'm plugged in now into what she knows and what she doesn't know. So whereas before it was like, oh yeah, she's great, everything is great, she's doing fantastic, we're happy, she's a great kid. Now I get us, I have her doing the county school stuff, but I also have her doing this homeschooling platform, digital distance learning platform, and I get a score sheet, and I know precisely where she's good, where she's not good, like where the gaps are, and I can, pull her aside and spend some time working on the things that are gaps. Maybe those gaps could become like big, huge problems 3 years from now for her. And I feel
You're
like
right.
I'm a lot closer to my child's education uh, through this experience. It's the oddest thing. I
No,
don't know if it.
I'm finding something similar now with my one that's in college. He's doing his thing, but with
Yeah.
my eighth grader, I am being more involved. Like I've scheduled an hour into my day. That's about an hour after she starts school, where I go and I check and see what she's doing and make sure she's progressing. But interestingly, what they've done in Prince William is nothing is mandatory. So I don't know how Loudon is, but nothing's mandatory. So
Nothing's.
they're providing them with optional lessons to do. Well, in my house, they're not optional, but
Yeah.
this for the school, they're optional. And so whatever grade they had at the time this started, this is the grade that they will end up with. And, they've allowed them to do makeup work and things like that they missed before this happened. Like she had some doctor's appointments and things like that right before. And
Mhm.
so there were some things that she had missed that she would have normally made up, but because they closed schools. So they've, allowed her to submit that work and things like that. But other than that, none of this work they're doing is being graded. So I like the approach her algebra teacher took, because she said, I'm not allowed to teach new material, but there's nothing that says I can't give you an outline of all the things they would have learned. See, I'm not sure how they're going to handle this in the fall when she starts high school, because she's going to be moving to a new school, a whole new level, a whole different level of expectation. And I'm concerned about her not getting everything that she should have gotten. So we're actually going through that and teaching it. And I'm fortunate that I can, but I
Right.
know there are students out here who don't have parents who can do that. Once you're in algebra or geometry or whatever level of English they're doing, or Spanish. Now that's one I can't really help her with much. She's
Well,
taking Spanish. I'm like, oh,
that's the thing too. That is becoming clear to me also, that this conversation, we're privileged to have this kind of a conversation, to be able to say, yeah, I'm plugged into my kids' schoolwork now through homeschooling, through this digital platform that I can afford. But the essential workers, the people that are out there, still having to get up and still having to go to store, or construction, whatever it's,
whatever it is.
um, they don't they don't have that option. So in a strange way, homeschooling is a kind of a privileged thing now,
It
right?
is. I mean, both of us have work that we can shift to working from home.
Right.
But so many people, either they're just out of work, or like you said, they're still having to go to work. And I can't imagine how I would do that if I had young children.
I don't know either.
My kids are older. You've got a young, much
Yeah.
younger than me. And that would be way more challenging if,
Yeah.
and I was talking to one of my clients the other day, and she's like, she has two really young kids, and she's trying to work from home, and she's exhausted
Yeah.
because she's trying to, get her, I think one of them is school age and one is not. And so they both need a lot of attention. Her school age child can't do, her lessons all by herself. So she needs mom to be there to help. And then the little one just needs, and then
Yeah.
she's trying to work from home too. And I'm like, wow, I won't complain about anything because I'm blessed that I don't have that situation.
Yeah. Eighth grader can already kind of take care of themselves, although she is entering a pretty crucial time period. Ninth through 12th grade is super important.
It is. It is. And I'm just thankful that I have a flexible schedule, even pre
Yeah.
COVID, a flexible enough schedule that I can be there to do, the different things that are needed.
I don't think education will be the same. When here I am saying something contradictory because we are in the new normal, but let's just say when we can get back together, it's still going to be different. And I think people are going to be much more aware of what it takes to educate kids and where the gaps are, in public schools and in general, and just in schooling. So much of it is about just keeping them busy while we're working. So much of it,
Yeah.
um, incredible time to be alive and just to see all this stuff happening around us.
We won't forget it, like when you think about where were you when 9/11 happened. I mean, I can tell you exactly where we
Yeah,
were and what we were
yeah,
doing. And I think this period in our lives is going to be another one of those, we will never forget this experience and how much it has changed. And I think going forward, I think if we look back 5 years from now, we'll be saying how much it has changed our lives permanently.
hmm yeah.
How we do, and some good, I think some good will come of it. I
Oh,
know
I
for
agree.
me, when I think about how much I was running around, like probably 4 hours of my day was going somewhere, whether it
Yeah,
was to a networking meeting, a client appointment, taking my child somewhere or other. There's some of it I'll still do, even if we went back to normal operations, which I don't think we will. But even if we did, there's some of it I think I will permanently leave behind.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. What is this? I keep telling, and I don't know if I heard this because I'm not that smart typically, but it's occurred to me that what is necessity right now is going to be kind of convenience tomorrow,
Hmm.
So it's necessary to socially distance and work from home today. Tomorrow, it's just going to be. Wait a minute, hold up. You want me to drive how long? 40 minutes
When I
to
can
get
do
to
this from
work
here.
when I can do this from here? And I've shown it. You know, um,
Yeah.
no, of course not. Or even one-to-one meetings, like BNI one-to-one meetings. I don't. I told Dip. You know. I don't think BNI will be the same. I don't think that any. No, of course we will have one-to-ones, like person one-to-ones. But it's so convenient to do like this. Like this is a real one-to-one. I
It
get, I'm
is a
saying
real
we
one
can.
to one. I mean, I'm seeing your face.
Right,
I can see your body
right,
language.
right.
And I don't,
And we didn't
what,
just drive 45 minutes or half an hour to meet somewhere,
no.
right?
I mean, you got to brew your own coffee and I got to brew mine. But other than that, there you go. Other than that, this feels like we're in person.
Like,
And one of my colleagues who actually had been doing his events, it was a couple, and they'd been doing virtual events for 3 or 4 years. So they were really kind of cutting edge with this before we had to. And thank God they were very willing to tell the rest of us, that their lessons learned and things like that, and save us a lot of time and energy in figuring out the things that they've figured out over the last 3 or 4 years. But one of the things that he said was he had done a lot of research on the brain and face to face versus physically, face to face over video versus physically being there. And what he said was your brain really can't doesn't distinguish it. It
Yeah.
feels like you're meeting in person. You're hearing the voice, you're seeing, the body language, all of that is the same as if you were in the same space. And, after the meeting, your brain doesn't make a distinction between whether you were actually face to face or not. And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. So I think we're going to figure that out. But even for me, client meetings have been great like this, and my clients are liking it
Hmm.
because
That's
I'm
right.
not coming to their house. They don't have to clean up, or whatever, or drive somewhere to meet me.
The
If they
sales
need
cycle,
something to look something up, it's right there.
yeah,
So they're, not.
sales cycle is moving completely virtual. Like, I don't think that we will go back to doing. Yeah, no, of course we will on that occasion when somebody wants to. But if at OE we can do a virtual tour, whether it's in real time on FaceTime or something like that, or through video, why not? Why not? So the
Yeah,
sales cycle is moving virtual too, right, for people. The only thing I can't figure out is making new connections, right? Like, I don't know how to meet. You can't approach a person on Zoom and say, "Hi, my name is," right? "Hey, I wanted to meet you. I heard you do this and that." Some networking meeting, for example. So these networking meetings are a lot more structured, at least the ones that I've attended,
yes,
because or the opportunities to network. Okay, there's a speaker, there's a presentation, people are asked to speak up, but then there is no sort of organic ability to kind of go off and just shoot the shit for a little while and have just kind of make a new friend that you follow up with later. I don't know how that's going to work.
I've been trying to play around with that as well, and I do some of that. But I think maybe the whole BNI worm introduction networking is going to be a little bit more important if we keep things virtual. I mean, because I do attend other networking that's a
Yeah.
little less structured. Well, I mean, they have to have structure over Zoom, but a little less structured in terms of, having the same people there all the time and stuff like that. Um, Scheduling the one-to-ones is the only way I have found, like during the meeting, I might send a private chat or something that says, "Hey, I'd really like to connect with you.
Yeah,
Are
that's
you open to that?" Things like that I've done. And then scheduled one-to-ones after that based on a chat that we may have had on the structured meeting.
that is true. Yeah, you're just kind of scheduling one-to-ones with people based on nothing, based on really who they are and what kind of fit you think they may be, but
Hmm.
you will not know if there's even a spark of friendship there or something until you. I mean, these are friendships, right? This is what we do: is we build friendships, we build relationships. So that's impossible to know until that one-to-one actually takes place.
I also think the hangout. Now, this is something that I've done. I've only done two virtual wine, women, and wealth. So there's the formal portion of the meeting, and what's funny is we actually do this in person too. Um, I've started actually doing what I'm calling the hangout. So when we're in person, we finish the wine. If there's any
Yeah.
wine left over, that's what we do in the hangout
Right. Right.
afterwards. And so I like to respect people's time. So at 8:30, I say this ends the formal portion of the meeting. And so for people who have to go, they don't feel
Mm.
awkward about leaving. The formal part's over, but we're going to hang out for a while. And so I was glad to hear Ashley say that she was going to start doing that after BNI. And so if you can hang out and maybe you're wanting to talk to a guest or maybe you want to just socialize a little bit, I do miss that piece, right? And so after Wine, Women, and Wealth, the last one we did was last Friday. I mean, I think we hung out for another 45 minutes. And,
So
people were just chatting and joking and laughing and, just having a good time, just having a conversation, on the Brady, like the Brady Bunch.
yeah,
But
yeah. So just tiles and people talking to one another.
yep.
Hey, have you noticed how um, unprepared we've all been as far as just the whole video aspect of Zoom and everything else? We were having a Dulles chamber meeting I co-chair one of the committees there, and I spoke to the chair later. I was like, some of these people look like vampires. Like they need to turn the lights on because the way it's not even the fact that they're wearing pajamas under their shirt,
Right.
but
Nobody knows that but you.
it's like, yeah, but it's just they're all sitting, with their back to the window, and it's all backlit. So we're all starting to learn how to run our own little, TV studios, just to appear
Yes.
friendly and professional and not scary and you know
And I
weird.
had actually been starting to do a little bit of that. My social media coach has been pushing me to do more video stuff.
Yeah,
And so I had ordered a light. And I'm fortunate. I have a big window over here, so there's a lot of natural light that comes in during the day.
yeah,
But I am in the basement, but it's a fully, you know,
finished. Yeah,
whatever, fully out basement, I guess. It's not underground, right?
right, right,
This
right.
whole side is out. So, it's so there's a lot of natural light that comes in, but still, having some extra light, like I've got a lamp over here, it's just you do learn and you start to look. The one thing I didn't have was a webcam. And I didn't think of it until, of course, we were a little ways into this, and then, oh my gosh, trying to find a decent one. So
Yeah.
finally, like I had put one in my Amazon cart, and then I went to look for another one. I was just kind of comparing, and by the time I got back within like 20 minutes, they were sold out. The one I had put in my cart, I had taken it out
Wow.
because they were sold out. I was like, oh my gosh. And so when I found one again, I just put it in the cart and bought it. Not the best, but I couldn't even find a horrible one the other day when I went out looking.
They're sold out.
They're
Yeah.
sold out
I
everywhere.
I had to wait 2 weeks. I ordered one for Chris, our business center manager, and I had to wait 2 weeks for it to show up at her house, so she could start doing her Zoom meetings as well. It's crazy.
You probably ordered it a week before I did mine because mine took a month to get here.
Did it really?
Yes, I
Holy
ordered
crap!
this end of March. I'm sorry, middle of March, and I got it 2 or 3 days ago.
Wow. It's amazing what's becoming important, what's not as important. Toilet paper and webcams and
Yeah, we're
uh,
pretty well stocked on the toilet paper thing, but I said to my husband today, I'm like, the shortages and the fact that this looks like it's going to go a while longer, we
yeah,
might want to start looking every time that we go out just in case,
yeah,
because I mean, we got enough for a while, but it's not easy to find even now.
yeah. Yeah, I think last time I went to a grocery store was 2 weeks ago, and it was still empty, bare shelves. So we're
I stocked up. I had to my son was on spring break when all this stuff happened.
mm,
So the initial thing was they extended spring break a week. And then they said you could choose whether you were going to come back to campus or not, but they had not at that point made a determination as to how they were going to continue classes. And so I was like, with all this that's going on, I would prefer you come home. So of course, he hadn't packed up all his stuff to come home for spring break. He just, brought a duffel bag.
oh
So
wow,
we drove down to get all his stuff. And as we were getting off the exit, they had already said that no one could enter the dorm other than the students. So I was thinking, well, I'm probably going to have to stay outside while he goes and packs and gets his stuff. And, I can meet him at
yeah,
the door and put it in the car, that kind of thing. And so I said, pull off and let me stop. He was driving. So I was like, you pull off and let me stop somewhere. Let's get something to eat and let me go to the bathroom because I probably can't go in. And so where he pulled off, there was a Walmart. And I said, pull over. Let me go see if they've got toilet paper. So I went in there and I got there just as the lady was coming around with the cart full of stuff to stock the shelves. And there was a line of people waiting for her. I don't think she ever took a thing of toilet paper off and put it on a shelf. She was handing it to people. I was like, I don't even care what brand. Just give
yeah.
me, so she gave me a few packages and off I went. But
Were they limiting at least the?
I don't think so. I
No?
got as much as I could carry because I hadn't
Wow.
even gotten a cart. I was not expecting them to really have it. And I was like, I'm not touching anything. I'm just coming in and I'm going to go look and then walk back out was what I thought. But when she came around the corner, I was like, if I go get a cart, get any. So I was like, give me what I can carry. And she stacked me up.
Yeah, yeah. It's
It's
crazy.
crazy. So
It's
we
like
were
we're all
stocked for a
nesting for
while.
some reason. Like I feel like it's a nesting thing, right? Like we've done so much work around the house. I have never had a more organized home than I have right now. If you saw
Yeah.
my garage, every single tool is on a pegboard. I didn't have a pegboard. I installed it. I mean, it's and from what I hear, people are doing a ton of stuff around homes too, just
Oh
taking
my
care
gosh, yes, my honeydew list is
is long.
it's dwindling. But trust me, I can add more stuff. Um,
Erica,
but
it's so good to see you and
you too.
connect with you, and I'm glad that we finally had a chance to do a one-to-one. Um, and I said to you before, you've changed my perspective on having an insurance agent, and I've mentioned this to you before. And I guess it was maybe skewed by this. I don't know. I don't know what that is because there's nothing wrong with being an insurance agent, but maybe it was the Groundhog Day for me. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But
Insurance agents do not have a great reputation like used car salespeople. And I
yeah,
know there are great used car salespeople out there, but the reputation is,
that's
and life insurance, insurance agents have the same. And I get that. It's okay. I get it. I've
I
heard
never
it.
I never understood it. I never understood why. I just had it. But talking to you, it's all completely opened up my mind and my eyes to the fact that this business really works differently, and what a great insurance agent does really to education. You've certainly educated me.
Good.
I'm still unprepared. I'm still
But
I
we'll
still owe
get
you a
that.
bunch of stuff.
We're going to get you what you need.
Yes.
We're going to make sure that your house, not just the physical house, but,
Yes.
the whole financial house
Is in
gets uh
order.
gets in order just like the physical house. So, it's
I
going to work.
cannot wait to be able to finally complete that. Since this is a one-to-one, do you want to do a quick BNI 45-second and we can wrap up?
Sure. Sure.
I'm going to put you on
Uh
the spot.
yeah, no problem. So I guess if I were at BNI, I would say something like, my name is Erica Moore. I'm with Five Rings Financial. And I help people to protect and grow their money for long term needs. And I do that through one of the vehicles I do that through is life insurance that has living benefits. So when somebody gets sick, generally their income drops, and at the same time, their expenses go up. What living benefits do inside of a life insurance policy is they allow you to accelerate the death benefit, access it early so that you can fund your life and focus on getting well as opposed to being concerned about how you're going to pay your bills. And then, of course, it's life insurance. So if God forbid you passed away, your family is going to be taken care of financially so that they can continue to live the life that you dreamed of. I'm Erica Moore, Five Rings Financial.